Hey everybody, it's Lore Friday for May 28th, 2021. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. And this week we are looking at the Tier 7 adventure from Candlekeep Mysteries called Sarah of Yellowcrest Manor. Now, this particular adventure is one that has, I think, the most locations that we've seen so far in any of these adventures. It actually goes into 4 different locations, but what you're trying to do in this one is your PCs are trying to solve the mystery of a mass murder in the metropolis of Waterdeep. The setting of this starts in Candlekeep Library, then it moves to the city of Waterdeep, then it moves to a city south of Waterdeep called Greenfast, and finally it moves outside the village of Greenfast to an old tower. And the teaser for this one is that the ghost of a young woman coalesces out of a nondescript book in front of the characters. She's weeping, and when she tries to speak, the characters can see that her tongue has been cut out. And in frustration at being unable to communicate, the ghost disappears. So, the nondescript book turns out to be Sarah of Yellowcrest Manor. And the backstory for this one is that 5 years ago, this book, Sarah of Yellowcrest Manor, was brought to Candlekeep. And when it's examined, the book turns out to be the diary of a servant named Sarah that was a member of the Yellowcrest Manor household in the town or the city of Waterdeep. So a little research reveals that 5 years ago, Lady Yellowcrest, her children, and all the servants of the household were brutally murdered while Lord Yellowcrest was away on business. Furthermore, these murders have never been solved. So, if the PCs take an interest in these unsolved murders, there is a way they can figure out how to resummon the ghost. And so we're going to take a little bit of a look at the plot of this one. After the PCs figure out that this is a diary, and that the diary belonged to someone named Sarah, and she was one of the servants that was killed, they can go to the Avowed, and the Avowed will know that the Lady Yellowcrest, the children, the servants, were all brutally murdered. And if the characters can discern how to resummon the ghost, this Sarah can point them to passages in her diary that hint at some evil that involved Lord Yellowcrest himself. Furthermore, if one of the PCs is willing to allow Sarah to use the ghost's possession feature so that she can speak through them, the ghost will tell the PCs who murdered her. A rational bunch of PCs would realize, well, all we have is a ghost telling us who murdered her. That's really not evidence that the City Watch in Waterdeep is going to be able to use to figure, to make any charges. So if the characters at this point decide they want to try to investigate and gather more evidence, they can, of course, travel to Waterdeep. The former Yellowcrest Manor is now the home to a new family, and this new family has no connection to the murders. However, the butler of the new family is very fond of drink, and with a little tipple or two, he knows a few details, and drink will loosen his tongue, and he can share some details that might be helpful to the party in their investigation. Among these is that there are several businesses in Waterdeep that are still owned and run by Lord Yellowcrest in absentia. So, if the party decides to go to investigate these businesses, it'll reveal that an overseer, who is an elf, comes on a regular basis to pay wages and collect profits. If they hang around and wait for this overseer, they'll realize that he has a larger than usual entourage of toughs and mercenaries. That's not at all suspicious, is it? If the party decides to question the overseer, they have several different ways they can do that. They can beat him up and possibly capture him, or they can schmooze him, depending on what skills they have and everything. That can reveal where your Lord Yellowcrest is currently living, which is in the village of Greenfast, southeast of Waterdeep. So then the plot moves to Greenfast. And when the PCs investigate in the village, it reveals that Lord Yellowcrest's home is mostly abandoned. And several village folk are concerned about recent attacks on the roads by bandits, and by the fact that several locals have fallen under the sway of this Lord Yellowcrest. And you know what? Those locals don't seem to be around any longer. Now that's not suspicious at all, is it? They can confront the overseer in the village, because it's possible that they could just question the overseer, find out some information, he leaves. Then if they finally confront the overseer in the village, that will summon some cultists that are active members of this cult that Lord Yellowcrest is the leader of, and that this overseer is a part of as well. If they have a fight there, they will eventually be able to discover the location of a secret temple that Lord Yellowcrest and his followers are building outside of town. The temple is located under the ruins of an old tower, and once they go and investigate in that old tower, that will reveal not only the presence of a number of cultists, but also the presence of aberrations from the outer planes. And they also will discover that the human sacrifices of the cultists are continuing. Why do you think they're attacking these caravans and people are going missing? There's also a couple of the missing townsfolk in this complex. Now, some of them are cultists and some of them are prisoners of the cult. The party ultimately has an opportunity to fight Lord Yellowcrest and destroy the operations of the cult. There's a couple ways that could go. If the party prevails and they manage to kill or capture Lord Yellowcrest, then that can put an end to the cult's mischief once and for all, and it would allow the party to recover a few nifty magic items, as well as the remains of Lady Yellowcrest and her children's. And their remains were never found after the murders, and one of the things that the ghost, this Sarah, would want is to give the lady and her children a proper burial, or bury them in consecrated ground so their spirits can be free. If they don't wind up capturing or killing Lord Yellowcrest, he has a scroll of teleportation, and he can use that to get away. And so there's all kinds of future possibilities with this character popping up again later in your campaign. Now, probably this person wouldn't go back to Waterdeep. They'd probably have somewhere else they would go, and they would try to set up their cult once again, recruit followers. As you're examining this cult complex, this temple complex, there's hints that they're saving parts of the sacrifices for a future ritual, a huge ritual that requires a lot of sacrifices. What possibly could that ritual be for? Well, if Lord Yellowcrest survives this encounter with these PCs, it's almost certain that somewhere down the road, he's going to complete that ritual. And he's going to want revenge on those meddling kids who messed up his plans. Oh, shake my fist at you. The most common enemies you're going to find throughout this adventure are humanoids. And the single toughest encounter you're going to find, or you're going to have, is potentially against 3 cult fanatics, which are CR2 monsters, 2 cultists, CR1/8 monsters, 2 Grell, who are CR3 monsters, and a mage, being the cult leader, which is a CR6 monster. Quite a mix of different monster levels, but you put all those together, put 8 monsters together, that can be a pretty formidable encounter for a party. Special creatures or items. The former Lord of Yellowcrest Manor is the leader of a cult dedicated to a Great Old One entity. Now that entity never appears in the adventure, but as I said, there's an oblique reference to a future ritual that may summon that creature at a future date. The special items that you'll find in here include a robe of scintillating colors, which could be a nifty thing if you have a caster in the party. Now, my favorite elements of the adventure, I like the maps of the village of Greenfast and the ruins below the tower. One thing I've noticed in 5th edition especially, is that Wizards of the Coast is on they're on a cultist kick. I mean, you go all the way back to the launch of 5th edition with Tyranny of Dragons. That centered around a cult. Then you had Princes of the Apocalypse, which centered around cults dedicated to elemental evil. Every time you turn around, more and more of the adventures that they are putting out all surround cults and cultists. There's a reason they do that, because there's lots of different stories you can tell with cults. But it is, kind of a trope that it feels like they're just kind of using to death in this edition of the game. So now the easiest homebrew adaptation of this particular adventure, this could be a lead-in to a larger plot arc related to cults that are dedicated to Great Old Ones. This might be the first such cult your PCs encounter if you're going to have, if you're going to have Tier 2 kind of be the start of this arc, and it's going to go on throughout Tier 2 and maybe into Tier 3, or if the entire campaign is built around stopping the plans of one or more Great Old Ones, this might be yet another cult that your party has encountered to, either dedicated to the same Great Old One or a different Great Old One that is trying to influence and amass power. Depending on how you would want to use this. Now, those are just 2 quick off-the-cuff ideas that you could do. You may come up with something completely different that you want to do with this. But if you ran the edition, or if you ran the idea that you had already been doing a campaign around a Great Old One, and this was yet another series, you'd probably want to build in a little bit extra toughness, so that maybe by this time, if your party has already busted up 2 or 3 cults dedicated to this Great Old One, maybe some of the survivors of those cults, have found this other cult, and kind of they're on the lookout for you. So you might want to throw in a few other encounters where, instead of just, it's the cultists waiting for the PCs to come to them, the cultists might be sending people out to hunt the PCs by this point. People or creatures. Creatures sent by their Great Old One benefactor. The Old Ones. For those of you who remember the original Star Trek. Using this with other editions, well, everything in here, including the Grell, has appeared in other editions of D&D. So, maybe, I don't know if the Robe of Scintillating Colors has appeared in other editions, but similar magic items have, so you could easily swap that out for something that is almost the same in another edition. All right, well, that's going to do it for our look at Sarah of Yellowcrest Manor, which has been the level 7 adventure from Candlekeep Mysteries. Next time, we are going to be taking a look at the level 8 adventure, which is the Lore of LaRue. All right. Hope you guys are having a great week. If you like the content we're creating, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, click the post notification bell so that you are notified every time new content drops. Please also take a look in the description where you'll find information about the live streams that I do over on my Twitch channel and about the other content that you can find here on YouTube. All right, thank you so much. Take care. Everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Good night.